I can still remember the day everything changed. It started like any other Saturday morning. Coffee brewing, sunlight spilling across the kitchen table, and my mom scrolling through her phone, eyes narrowing at something I didn't yet understand. "Sit down," she said, voice steady but tense. That's when she showed me the first hint of the fraud in our neighborhood. An official-looking document, emails, receipts, all pointing to our seemingly perfect neighbor, Mr. Holloway. He had a reputation for being generous, the kind of person everyone trusted. I felt my stomach drop. How could this be real? At first, I thought maybe we were misreading things, but my mom didn't hesitate. She began quietly asking questions, taking notes, and observing without anyone noticing. She had this uncanny ability to read people, to spot the tiniest slip-up that would give away their secrets. Meanwhile, my curiosity and anxiety were building. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios. What if she's wrong? What if it's dangerous to confront him? Over the next few days, things got stranger. I saw subtle changes in my mom. The way she double-checked receipts at the grocery store, how she noticed unfamiliar faces lurking near our street, and her late-night sessions poring over documents. She didn't talk much about it, but I could feel her determination in the way she moved, in the way her eyes never left her laptop screen. I wanted to ask questions, to be involved, but I knew better than to interrupt her focus. Then came the moment that made my blood run cold. A neighbor we trusted, someone I'd played basketball with as a kid, was somehow involved. The evidence pointed to a network of lies, money scams, and manipulation. I could see my mom's jaw tighten, the silent fury building. She was calm, but I knew what was going through her mind. I will not let this go unpunished. And I realized, in that instant, that my mom wasn't just exposing a scam. She was planning the kind of calculated revenge that would leave no room for denial. I stayed up late that night, my head spinning. Every scenario I imagined was worse than the last. Could we be in danger? Could this backfire? But one thing was clear. My mom wasn't afraid, and I knew deep down that this story wasn't going to end quietly. Something big was coming, and I was about to be a witness to it all. The next morning, she handed me a folder labeled Evidence. Inside were photos, emails, and notes meticulously organized. "We do this smart," she said. "We do this carefully, but we make sure everyone sees the truth." I nodded, heart racing, realizing this wasn't just about exposing fraud. It was about proving that no one, no matter how charming or respected, could outsmart my mom. And just like that, the ordinary neighborhood I knew had become the center of a storm. The next few days were a whirlwind of careful observation and quiet investigation. My mom moved like a shadow through the neighborhood, friendly on the surface but razor-sharp underneath. I followed her from a distance once, trying not to be seen, and I could barely believe the level of detail she noticed. Every conversation, every subtle gesture, she recorded it all mentally. She knew what he was hiding, even before he did. One evening, she invited me into her office, our war room, as she jokingly called it. The walls were now covered in sticky notes, timelines, and charts connecting people, transactions, and suspicious activity. "Look," she said, pointing to a spreadsheet. "These are all his shell accounts. All the donations he's pretending to make. Fake, and these receipts, forged." My heart was pounding. It was like watching a master detective at work. I felt both amazed and terrified. But then came the twist I never expected. One of his accomplices was someone I knew, Mr. Holloway's assistant, the woman who always smiled politely at me in the hallway. She wasn't just helping with office work. She was hiding critical pieces of evidence, manipulating documents, and covering his tracks. My mind raced. Could she suspect we were onto them? My mom's eyes, sharp and calculating, caught mine. She said nothing, just a subtle nod, and I knew she already had a plan. Over the next few days, my mom began setting small traps. She sent anonymous tips to banks, reported discrepancies, and even recorded a few carefully staged conversations. Every move was calculated to make Mr. Holloway reveal his true colors. Meanwhile, I watched her keep her calm, even when she knew he was bluffing and trying to intimidate neighbors. The tension in the air was palpable. Could she really bring him down without risking herself? Could we really survive the backlash? Then the moment that made me catch my breath happened. A neighbor confronted my mom, suspicious of her late-night activity. "What are you up to?" he asked, eyes narrowing. I saw her smile. Not smug, not mean, just confident. She explained she was investigating a local scam, kept it vague, and somehow turned the conversation around so the neighbor left convinced she was just being cautious. That's when I realized something terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. She was untouchable. Her calm wasn't fake, it was armor, and she had every move mapped out. The stakes kept rising. Mr. Holloway was becoming jittery, making small mistakes, sending messages to people that contradicted his previous statements. My mom collected every piece, every slip-up, and then one night, she sat me down again. "Tomorrow," she said, voice low but steady, "we make sure the neighborhood sees the truth. Everything we've gathered, it's time." My heart skipped a beat. I had imagined exposing him before, but now it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into a storm. One wrong step, and it could all collapse. But my mom? She smiled. That subtle, knowing smile that told me she was ready. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't just witnessing a revelation. I was witnessing a lesson in patience, strategy, and quiet power. The next day would change everything. The morning of the reveal, our neighborhood felt unusually quiet. Birds chirped, the sun glinted off windows, and yet there was a tension in the air that no one else could see. My mom moved with her usual calm, but I could feel the storm brewing behind those steady eyes. "Remember," she said, "we're showing the truth, not creating chaos. Let the fraud speak for itself." I nodded, though my hands were trembling. Could we really pull this off? Could the evidence truly convince everyone without blowing back on us? We arrived at Mr. Holloway's house under the pretense of dropping off some neighborhood forms. I tried to act casual, but I felt like my heart was on fire. My mom greeted him warmly, shook his hand, and even joked about small talk. He looked pleased, unsuspecting. That smile, that arrogance, it was almost poetic. The kind of person who truly believes they're untouchable. But I knew better. My mom knew better. Over the next hour, she subtly guided him toward a private conversation. "We need to verify some numbers for the community fundraiser," she said casually. "Can we go inside?" His eyes flickered, maybe with suspicion, but he agreed. Once inside, my mom's demeanor changed ever so slightly, calm, collected, and deadly focused. She had all the evidence ready, spreadsheets, photos, recordings, everything neatly compiled. And she began showing him, piece by piece, how every single lie, every fabricated donation, every deceitful act he had committed was now visible to someone who wasn't afraid of him. His face went from smug confidence to pale panic in seconds. This can't be right," he stammered. I had never seen fear like that on someone so arrogant. My mom remained composed, letting him dig his own hole, answering his frantic questions with facts he couldn't argue against. I watched silently, my own blood boiling as someone I had thought untouchable was unraveling in real time. But just when I thought it couldn't get more intense, the twist hit. His assistant, the one I had recognized earlier, suddenly barged in, trying to intervene. "You don't understand," she cried. My mom, cool as ever, calmly turned to her and explained every step she had documented, exposing the assistant's role in the scam. The panic spread to her, eyes wide, voice shaking. It was like watching the puppet master reveal the strings to the entire puppet show. Then came the moment of public exposure. My mom had arranged a neighborhood meeting, disguised as a casual gathering, and invited everyone over. She revealed the fraud in front of all our neighbors, presenting each piece of evidence meticulously. Gasps, murmurs, and whispers filled the room. People were stunned. Some faces turned red with anger, some with embarrassment. And Mr. Holloway, he couldn't speak. Every lie, every manipulation, every fraudulent act was laid bare. I could feel my mom's satisfaction radiating, quiet but powerful. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about justice. The neighborhood had witnessed the truth, and the scales had finally tipped. Mr. Holloway's perfect image had shattered, and for the first time, I saw real accountability in action. As I stood beside my mom, I realized the lesson I had learned wasn't just about catching a fraudster. It was about patience, precision, and knowing when to strike. And the satisfaction of seeing karma finally catch up, indescribable. After the neighborhood meeting, the tension didn't disappear. It evolved. People whispered in clusters, exchanging shocked glances, replaying everything they had just seen. Some were angry at Mr. Holloway, some embarrassed they hadn't noticed sooner, and a few silently admired my mom's nerve. I could feel the energy like static in the air, buzzing, unpredictable. My mom, however, remained composed. She didn't gloat. She let the results speak for themselves. That calm, quiet confidence was more powerful than any shout or accusation. I remember walking home with her that evening, the sunset painting our street gold and pink, and thinking about the strange mix of fear and respect Mr. Holloway now carried. He had been so untouchable, so certain that no one could uncover him. But in just a few hours, his empire of lies crumbled, meticulously dismantled by my mom. I couldn't stop marveling at her strategy. Every step had been precise, observing, recording, setting subtle traps, and finally revealing the truth at exactly the right time. There was no chaos, no messy confrontation, just pure, satisfying justice. But the drama wasn't entirely over. That night, I overheard faint voices outside our window. Mr. Holloway and his assistant were huddled on the sidewalk, muttering frantically, trying to figure out what went wrong. He was blaming her, she was blaming him, and neither had an answer. I felt a rush of vindication. After all the lies, all the manipulations, all the false smiles, this was their reckoning. I could almost hear the metaphorical crash of the perfect facade they had built for years. Over the following days, the neighborhood slowly settled into a new rhythm. People who had once blindly trusted Mr. Holloway approached my mom, thanking her quietly, some even offering apologies for doubting her judgment. And yet, my mom remained modest, almost shy about her role. She never sought the spotlight. She simply wanted the truth to be known. And that, I realized, was the real genius of her revenge. It wasn't about humiliation or spectacle. It was about restoring balance, making sure that karma did its work in a way that couldn't be ignored. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what I had witnessed. The fraud had been huge, manipulative, and dangerous. But what struck me most was the patience and intelligence required to expose it. My mom had taught me that confrontation alone isn't enough. You need strategy, timing, and a complete understanding of the situation. It's about reading people, understanding motives, and letting evidence do the talking. And when it finally does, the payoff is sweeter than anything else. I also noticed a subtle shift in the neighborhood. People became more aware, more careful, but also more connected. There was a shared understanding that someone had to step up when others turned a blind eye. And in that sense, my mom's actions were more than just revenge. They were a wake-up call, a reminder that deception, no matter how well hidden, cannot last forever. That night, I sat by the window and thought about the incredible journey we had been through together. The fear, the suspense, the tension, and the ultimate victory. My mom had shown me not just how to expose a fraud, but how to do it with dignity, precision, and an unwavering sense of justice. By the time the weekend ended, the full impact of my mom's actions became clear. Mr. Holloway's carefully constructed image of respectability was completely destroyed. His accounts were frozen, investigations had begun, and even the local news picked up the story. Not because my mom sought attention, but because the truth was undeniable. People in the neighborhood who had once praised him were now avoiding him entirely. And yet, the most satisfying part wasn't the chaos around him. It was the quiet power my mom radiated. She didn't need applause or recognition. She had achieved exactly what she set out to do: expose the fraud, restore justice, and ensure the lesson would not be forgotten. I remember sitting beside her one evening, recounting everything that had happened, still trying to process it all. "Mom," I asked, "weren't you scared? I mean, he could have done anything to us if he'd known we were onto him." She chuckled softly, her eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "Fear is natural," she said, "but preparation, patience, and keeping your mind clear, that's what gives you power. And when you act, you do it decisively. That's what matters." Her words hit me harder than anything else I had learned that week. It wasn't just about catching someone in a lie. It was about understanding control, observing carefully, and knowing exactly when to strike. Over the next few weeks, our neighborhood slowly returned to normal, though nothing would ever be the same. People were more cautious, more aware, and a few even quietly came to us for advice. And though Mr. Holloway tried to salvage some dignity, the damage was permanent. His lies were public, his manipulations exposed, and every attempt to defend himself was undercut by my mom's meticulous evidence. It was the purest form of karma, slow, inevitable, and completely satisfying. As for me, I couldn't stop thinking about the lessons I had learned. Watching my mom work was like watching a master strategist in action. She had turned fear into focus, chaos into clarity, and betrayal into justice. I realized that revenge, when executed thoughtfully and responsibly, wasn't about cruelty. It was about balance, accountability, and making sure that wrongdoers faced the consequences of their actions. The adrenaline, the suspense, and the payoff were unforgettable. But so was the wisdom she had imparted quietly, through example. Looking back, I can't believe how one quiet, ordinary neighborhood morning spiraled into an epic story of deception, courage, and justice. My mom didn't just expose a fraud. She taught me the value of patience, intelligence, and integrity. And the most satisfying part, seeing someone who thought they were untouchable finally face the truth, realizing that no lie, no matter how clever, can stand against the unwavering power of truth. Whew. Did this one give you that satisfying chill?